Oh, like I said, no license plate number whatsoever. I have no clue of what the plate number is at all. So, he gets in the truck and takes off after almost falling down. So, having a gun did work without me having to shoot somebody, because, I was going to let him see the gun first, of course, but if he would have continued on toward me, I probably would have shot him. I would not have waited for this guy to hit me. Too bad, so sad. I'll take my day in court. You ain't going to swing a bat at me or my head. I'm going to get you before you get me, and if I have to defend myself in court, then so be it, but I'm not going to have a big gash and a crushed skull right here from an aluminum bat. That's just the way it is. Sorry, but that's just the way it is with me. So this guy takes off so quick, I could see a distance, far down the road, and there was a couple slight curves. This guy was gone, man. I mean, he must have just stood on that gas pedal. So I'm still sitting there. I've laid the gun down, on my lap, and I'm just just kind of cooling down from this whole situation. Adrenaline was just sky high, man. My adrenaline was just up here. So what I did next is one of the things that I wanted to tell you guys for if something ever happens to you, that you should do this also. Now, I had no fear that this guy was going to call the cops or try to get me in trouble. I didn't really think that he would ever call the police, because of what he did and what he instigated. I just didn't think he would. But I decided within just a couple of seconds that I was going to call the police. As far as I was concerned, in my mind, this incident was done and over. I took care of myself. I handled it. In my eyes, I was good to go. It was done. The only reason I called the police was not to try to snitch this guy out, which really should have been what I was doing, but that really wasn't in my mind. Basically, in my mind was I took care of the situation. It's done. It's over with. I called the police because, if you think about it, this incident happens, and you're a police officer, and there's two different ways you could get this call. You could either have this guy call you and say, I was driving down the road, some guy in a white BMW pulled out a gun and aimed it at me, and I had to take off, and this guy could have just came off like that and tried to sell me out, basically, for defending myself. He could have just drummed up a story and then basically said this guy pulled a gun on me, and then if the cops see me and they stop me and they see I do have guns on me, well, then I'm going to have to dig my way out of this hole. And I'm already, then I'm already going to seem like I'm guilty. So basically, I called the cops so that if anything went down, I was the first caller. So when I called the cops, I told them that basically I said, let me speak to the chief. I spoke to the chief of police, and I said, this is what happened. I said, first of all, I have a permit to carry a firearm. And I said, I was on my way to do some shooting outdoors, and I basically started explaining the story to him. And I went through the whole rundown, basically, of what I told you guys, and I said, told him that this guy came out with a bat and everything, and his first question to me was, the police chief's first question to me was, why didn't you shoot him? I'm not going to say that he was telling me that I should have shot the guy, but he understood that that could be such a life-threatening situation with a deadly weapon that he just was kind of like, why didn't you shoot him? And I said, well, I'll tell you why. I said, because as soon as he had a couple more steps before he got to me, and I said, as soon as he seen the barrel of this gun, I said, he spun around so quick, he almost fell down on the ground. At that point, he was no longer a threat. Once this guy's back was turned toward me, I'm not going to shoot. Now, you can shoot somebody in the back. There is a stipulation. You can't, you're not supposed to ever shoot anybody in the back, but there is a stipulation to that rule. If somebody is in a firefight with you, and they're firing at you, and they're running to take cover, when they run to take cover, so they can get more shots off, you can shoot them in the back. But if somebody breaks into my home right now, and I come around the corner and point that .44 Magnum at him, and this guy spins around before I get a shot off, I have to let that dude run. That's just the way it is, man. I can't shoot this guy in the back and go to, pretty much the threat is leaving. So that's just the way it is, man. I can't be the judge and jury. I can only shoot the guy if he continues to come toward me. So anyway, I told the police officer, or the chief, I said, when he seen the barrel of that gun and he took off like that, I said, I didn't even have my finger on the trigger. I said, I keep my finger out of the trigger guard. I said, before I would have even had time to place my finger on that trigger, I said, this guy did what he should have done. He was very smart this day on that point. The first thing he did was stupid, but he was pretty smart when it came to that. So he took off. So then the police chief says to me, he wants a description of the truck. So I give it to him. And he says, what I'm going to do is, oh wait, let me back up a little bit. I forgot to say a couple things. When I first started telling the chief what happened, I told him, I said, basically I said I was in fear of my life, and and at that time I pulled the firearm. So he just kind of shot the question back, and he says, okay, you felt your life was in danger at that time? I said, most definitely my life was in danger. My window down, the guy had an aluminum baseball bat, and was just going off like a maniac, and was coming at, and then was coming at me with a bat. I said, I definitely felt my life was in danger. Police chief, his exact words were, okay, works for me. That's exactly what he said. And then basically after we discussed that, and he said, that works for him, that's when he started asking me, like, why I didn't shoot him and stuff. And I just basically told him, I said, by the time I'd have had my finger even in the trigger guard, this guy was already spinning around. So he says, give me a description of the truck to the best of your ability. So I described it. I gave him a pretty good description because, the 2 times this guy stopped, I was looking right at the back of the truck the whole time. And so he says, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send out an officer or a couple. He's almost sent a couple cruisers over that way, and he says if we see something that matches that description, we'll pick the guy up and bring him down. Would you be willing to file or to sign paperwork, stating basically that this guy he menaced me. He was basically menacing was the charge or whatever that he would have got. And I said, yeah. I didn't think they'd find him, but I said, yeah, if you get him, I'll come down and I'll fill out the papers and sign the forms or whatever. And basically the police chief said, okay, great, and hung up the phone and went on my way. And let me think here. I actually came back home, and then an hour later, I went and did my shooting and stuff. I came back home for about an hour, I'd say. After it all went down, I talked to the police chief. I just really didn't have any interest to go shoot at that time. I just didn't feel it didn't really feel like it was something that was going to be fun for me right at that point in time. So I came back home, and after about an hour and a half, then I actually did go back out and go shooting, and the Glock worked fine. So just wanted to let you guys know, just some of the things that can happen if you do ever pull your gun. Always be the first caller. Even if you don't think that the scum that you pulled the gun on, even if he's not going to call the police, which he probably won't, most of them have records a mile long, they don't want to mess with the police. Always try to be the first caller, because it can, like I said, it can go down 2 different ways. You either got a guy saying, this guy pulled a gun on me and I don't know why, and then you have to dig yourself out of this hole, or you're the first caller saying, my life was in danger, officer. I felt I had to pull my firearm because I was in fear of my life. Now, you look at those 2 different scenarios I just gave you, and if you were the officer, depending on which call you got first, how would you feel? I want to be the guy saying, my life was in danger and I felt threatened for my life, and I pulled my firearm, and I do have a permit. Now this guy knows I'm legit. We're going all the way down the line. Now, if the other guy calls, he's going to say, this guy just pulled a gun on me. And the police don't know if they're out chasing down some maniac that's going to try to shoot the police or not. So always, always be the first caller to the police. Just make sure you do that, and you know, everything will be on your side at that point. So, all right, guys. If there's anything I left out, or if you have any questions, just send me a message, and I'll let you know. This is Humans for Targets. I almost had a target that day, and I'm out.